Hey everyone. I never thought I'd be posting here, but I really need some advice. Here's the deal. My name's Rick, and my soon-to-be ex-wife's name is Emily. We've been married for a solid 10 years, and I thought we were good. Sure, we've had our share of ups and downs like any couple, but recently, things just felt different. I met Emily back in college, and she's been my rock through every high and low since. Together, we've built a life, even bought a house, and we've been talking about having kids. But over the past year, I started noticing some things that didn't sit right with me. At first, it was just the late nights. Emily's job has always been demanding, but all of a sudden, she was coming home late almost every night. Then she started getting all secretive with her phone, laughing at messages and then quickly hiding the screen whenever I'd walk by. When I brought it up, she'd brush it off, saying it was just work stress and that I was being paranoid. But there were other things too. She stopped being affectionate, wouldn't spend time with me, and grew more distant every day. I tried talking to her about it multiple times, but each time, she'd get defensive, accusing me of not trusting her. I tried to ignore my growing suspicions because I loved her and wanted to believe she was still the person I married. I thought maybe I was overthinking things, letting my insecurities get in the way. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And boy was I right. After months of feeling uneasy, I finally did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her phone. Yeah, I know it was a huge breach of trust, but my gut was screaming at me. One night, after she'd gone to bed, I grabbed her phone off the nightstand and took it to the bathroom. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it, and went straight to her messages. And there it was, a conversation with some guy named Steve. My heart sank as I read through one flirty message after another, along with explicit stuff I wish I could forget. They talked about their meetups, how much fun they had, and all the lies she told to cover her tracks. She even joked about how clueless I was. I felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. My whole world just crumbled right there. I kept scrolling and found photos, dates, locations, enough proof to confirm my worst fears. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. I sat there on the cold bathroom floor for what felt like hours, staring at the screen. I didn't know what to do. Should I wake her up and confront her right then? Or wait until the morning? My mind was spinning with anger, hurt, and betrayal. Eventually, I put her phone back and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, too wired to sleep. I kept replaying every conversation, every lie, every time she made me feel like I was the problem. I knew I had to confront her, but I needed a plan. The next morning, I was running on pure adrenaline and zero sleep. Emily acted like everything was totally normal, which only made my blood boil more. I waited until after breakfast, right when she was about to leave for work. I needed her full attention, no way for her to dodge this talk. Emily, we need to talk, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She gave me a confused look. Can it wait? I'm already late for a meeting. No, it can't, I replied, my anger slipping out. I know about Steve. Her face went pale, and for a second she just froze. I thought she might deny it, but instead, she sighed and sat down. What exactly do you think you know? I know everything, I said, tossing her phone onto the table. I saw the messages, the pictures, all of it. How long has this been going on? Emily looked down at her hands, then back up at me, her expression hardening. A few months, she admitted. But Rick, you need to understand. I wasn't happy. We weren't happy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, instead of talking to me, you just went and slept with someone else? How was that supposed to solve anything? She rolled her eyes and leaned back in her chair. Don't be so dramatic. It's not like you were perfect. You're always working, always stressed. I needed more than that. Her coldness felt like a slap in the face. You mean you needed someone else? I shot back. And what about all the lies? The late nights? The secrecy? Did you actually enjoy making me feel like I was losing my mind? Emily shrugged. You were losing your mind. And honestly, I was tired of pretending. Steve made me feel alive again, something you haven't done in a long time. Her disregard for my feelings left me speechless. So, what now? I asked. Are you planning to leave me for him? She smirked. Maybe. But first, I think you should leave. Pack up and go. This marriage is over. I couldn't believe her audacity. You're kicking me out after everything you've done? Emily stood up, crossing her arms. Yes, I am. I want a divorce, Rick. And I want you out of this house by the end of the week. I just stood there, staring at her, feeling my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. This woman I'd loved and trusted for years had turned into a complete stranger. But I knew there was no point in arguing. I had to leave before I lost control. I still can't get over how cold and heartless Emily was during our conversation. After she told me to pack and go, I was hit with waves of anger, sadness, and disbelief, like my world was falling apart. I decided to take a walk to clear my head, just so I wouldn't do something I'd regret. As I wandered through our neighborhood, all the good memories started coming back. I couldn't understand how things had gone so wrong. I felt devastated and completely betrayed. When I finally got back, Emily was gone. She'd left for work like nothing had happened. I headed straight to our bedroom and started packing. My mind was racing. How could she just throw away 10 years like it was nothing? By the time I finished, it was evening. I couldn't stand to be in that house another minute, surrounded by the memories of our life together. I left a note on the kitchen counter. I'm leaving. Hope you're happy with your choice. Then I grabbed my bags and walked out. For the next few nights, I holed up in a cheap motel, barely sleeping, just lying there, staring at the ceiling. The pain was unbearable, and I didn't know how to deal with it. It felt like my life had been torn apart, and I was left with the pieces. But then one night, a thought crossed my mind. Why should I be the one left suffering? Why should Emily get off scot-free after everything she'd done to me? I decided I wasn't going to let her win so easily. So I took action. I knew all the details of our accounts, our savings, everything. I transferred all the money from our joint accounts into my personal one and disappeared without a trace. It was drastic, but I felt like it was the only way to reclaim some control over my life. I left town, moved to a different state, changed my phone number, and tried to start fresh. I knew it wasn't exactly right, but after what Emily had put me through, I felt justified. I needed a new beginning, far away from the hurt and betrayal. 3 years later, I was living a new life, trying to put it all behind me, when something unexpected happened. One night, I was sitting at a bar with a drink when a man approached me. He looked serious, almost like a detective. My heart started pounding. "Rick Morgan?" he asked, his eyes cold and focused. I nodded, trying to keep my cool. "Yeah, that's me." Before I could say another word, he pulled out a stun gun and aimed it right at my gut. "We're heading to Texas now, where you'll stand trial for fraud." I panicked. My old military training kicked in, and I reacted without thinking. I disarmed him, knocking the stun gun from his hand, and bolted from the bar. He was hot on my heels. I dashed into a nearby alley, my adrenaline spiking as I tried to catch my breath and plan my next move. I could hear him shouting into his radio, calling for backup. I knew I had to disappear again, fast. Luckily, I had some cash stashed for emergencies, so I hurried to my car, grabbed my go bag, and sped out of town. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the detective right behind me. I drove for hours, heading toward a secluded cabin I'd rented under a fake name months earlier, knowing I needed to lay low and regroup. When I finally reached the cabin, I locked myself inside and took a moment to process everything. The weight of the situation hit me hard. Somehow, Emily had tracked me down and was making sure I paid for taking the money. I stayed there for a few days, trying to come up with a plan. I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever, but I also couldn't go back to my old life. I had to find a way to clear my name and deal with the fallout. One night, while going through my emergency bag, I came across a business card from an old military buddy, Dave. He'd always been good with legal stuff and had connections that might come in handy. I called him, explained what was going on without giving too much away. Dave listened quietly and then said, "Rick, you're in deep, but I think I can help. Meet me at this address tomorrow morning, and we'll figure it out." The next morning, I drove to the address Dave gave me. It was a small, nondescript office building. Inside, Dave was waiting along with a lawyer he trusted. We spent hours talking through my options, figuring out how to handle the fraud charges and the mess with Emily. The lawyer, Sarah, was sharp and experienced, someone who knew her way around a complicated case. Sarah laid out a plan. We'd approach Laura's lawyer and offer a portion of the money if she agreed to drop the charges. It wasn't ideal, but it beat facing a trial and the real possibility of jail time. We made the call to her lawyer, and after some tense back and forth, we settled on an agreement. I'd return a big portion of the money, and in return, Laura would drop the charges and agree to an amicable divorce. It felt like a hollow victory, but at least I wasn't staring down a prison sentence. I followed through on our agreement, sent back the money, and signed the divorce papers. Laura got what she wanted, the money and her freedom, and I got a chance to start fresh. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I wasn't completely in the clear, but at least I was out from under the threat of jail. Now, it was time to focus on building a new life. With what was left of my savings, I moved to a quiet little town where nobody knew me. I rented a modest apartment, and found work at a local hardware store. It wasn't glamorous, but it was the clean break I needed. Those first few weeks were tough. I was constantly on edge, half expecting Laura to pull something else, or for the authorities to come after me for another reason. But as time went on, I started to settle into my new routine. I made a few friends at work, and little by little, I began to feel like myself again. In those quiet months, I did a lot of soul-searching. I realized that, yeah, Laura's betrayal was awful, but I had to own up to my part in how our marriage fell apart. I'd been so wrapped up in work and trying to provide that I'd lost sight of the connection we once had. It didn't excuse her actions, but it helped me see that relationships need constant effort from both sides. I started seeing a therapist, which was a huge help in working through the anger and pain. Having someone neutral to talk to gave me the space to start healing. The therapist encouraged me to focus on things that brought me peace and joy. So, I picked up hiking again, something I'd always loved but never seemed to have time for. The mountains were my retreat, a place where I could clear my head and reflect. I also joined a local book club, met new people, and rebuilt a social life. Through these little changes, I started to learn a lot about myself. I realized I had to be more present in my relationships and set healthy boundaries to protect myself from being taken advantage of again. One day while hiking, I crossed paths with someone who would change my life in ways I didn't see coming. Her name was Sarah, and like me, she loved the outdoors. We started hiking together, and over time, our friendship blossomed into something deeper. Sarah was kind, understanding, and patient, everything Laura wasn't. Our relationship was based on trust and open communication. I was upfront with her about my past, and she stood by me, supporting me as I continued to heal. Sarah showed me what a healthy, loving relationship could look like, and for that, I was incredibly grateful. I'm still a work in progress, but I've come a long way since discovering Laura's affair. I've learned to focus on my happiness and be careful about the people I let into my life. It's been a long, winding road, but I've learned a lot along the way. Here's what I've taken from this experience, and maybe it'll help someone in a similar place. First and foremost, trust your gut. If something feels off in your relationship, don't ignore it. I spent months telling myself I was just being paranoid, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. It's essential to talk openly and honestly with your partner about any concerns. If they dismiss your feelings or make you feel like you're the problem, that's a serious red flag. Second, don't underestimate the power of self-care and personal growth. After everything collapsed, I had to rebuild from scratch. It wasn't easy, but focusing on what made me happy and finding activities I enjoyed made a huge difference. Whether it's hiking, reading, or anything else that brings you joy, make time for it. Therapy was another vital part of my healing. Having a neutral, professional voice to help me process things gave me clarity and perspective. If you're struggling, I highly recommend seeking out therapy. It's not a sign of weakness, it's a step toward healing and becoming a better version of yourself. Finally, I learned the importance of setting healthy boundaries. In my last relationship, I allowed Laura to manipulate and control me. I ignored my own needs and let her walk all over me. Now I'm more aware of my boundaries and make sure they're respected in my relationship with Sarah. I'm grateful for the lessons, even though they came at a high cost. Mutual respect and open communication are essentials, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Sarah taught me that love doesn't have to be a battlefield. A healthy relationship is built on trust, support, and understanding. It's about being there for each other, not dragging each other down. If you're with someone who makes you feel undervalued or unloved, it might be time to reconsider if that relationship is truly right for you. I've also come to understand the importance of forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but also forgiving myself. It took me a long time to let go of the anger I felt toward Laura for what she did, and even longer to let go of the guilt I carried over my own mistakes. Holding on to resentment kept me tied to the past. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, it simply means choosing to move forward. If you're going through something similar, remember, you're not alone. It might feel like the end of the world right now, but there's light at the end of this tunnel. Surround yourself with supportive people, take care of your mental and physical health, and remember that it's okay to prioritize yourself. Looking back, it's hard to believe how much my life has transformed since the night I discovered Laura's betrayal. At that moment, it felt like my world had come crashing down, and I honestly wasn't sure if I'd ever recover. But now, on the other side of it, I see that sometimes the most painful experiences can lead to the most meaningful growth. I've learned that betrayal doesn't define who you are, it's how you respond to it that shapes your future. In the beginning, when I learned about Laura's affair, I felt completely shattered, hurt, angry, and adrift. But through this journey, I found a strength in myself that I didn't know I had. I made tough choices, took control of my life, and came out stronger for it. My self-worth and self-respect became crystal clear. I had allowed Laura to make me feel small and unworthy, but now I understand that no one has the right to diminish my value. Setting boundaries and standing up for myself has been empowering. In my relationship with Sarah, I make sure to communicate my needs and to respect hers in return. This partnership is rooted in mutual respect and genuine love, something I never had with Laura. Forgiveness has been a powerful part of my healing. Forgiving Laura wasn't easy, it took a lot of time and effort, but I realized that clinging to bitterness was only hurting me. Letting go of that anger helped me move forward. Forgiving myself was just as important. I made my share of mistakes, but I've learned from them and have grown into a better version of myself. Another huge lesson I learned is the importance of having a community. The support I received from friends, my therapist, and even strangers online has been invaluable. Sharing my story and hearing about others' experiences helped me feel less alone and gave me a sense of solidarity. If you're going through a rough time, don't hesitate to reach out for help. You might be surprised by how many people are willing to stand by you. As I move forward, I'm focused on living with authenticity and purpose. I want to keep growing, keep learning, and build a life that truly reflects who I am. Sarah and I are making plans for the future, and I'm genuinely excited about what's to come. Our relationship is proof that love can be kind, supportive, and real. If I could offer just one piece of advice to anyone facing betrayal or hardship, it would be this: trust in your ability to overcome. You are stronger than you realize, and you have the power to create a better future. Take things one day at a time, lean on your support system, and don't be afraid to seek help when you need it. Most importantly, remember that you are not alone. Infidelity, sadly, is common, and many people have been where you are now. Reach out to friends, family, or even online groups for support. Sharing your story can be incredibly healing, and hearing others' experiences can give you comfort and perspective. If you suspect your partner might be unfaithful, trust your instincts, but gather evidence before you confront them. Having clear proof can help you avoid being gaslit or manipulated and gives you a solid understanding of what's happening. When you do have that conversation, try to stay calm and focused. It's easy to let emotions run wild, but staying clear-headed will help you handle things more effectively. Once you know the truth, give yourself time to process it. Don't feel pressured to forgive immediately or make any big decisions on the spot about your relationship's future. This is your time to heal and decide what's best for you. Consider seeing a therapist, whether individually or as a couple if you're considering working through things. A professional can help you sort through your emotions, understand the deeper issues, and set a path forward. Therapy turned out to be a real game changer, guiding me from a place of pain to one of genuine growth. When it comes to moving forward, whether you choose to stay and work things out or decide to leave and start fresh, remember to prioritize your own well-being. Set clear boundaries, and keep open communication with your partner. If you're staying, just know that rebuilding trust will take time, patience, and mutual effort. If you decide to walk away, allow yourself the grace and time you need to heal. Starting over can feel intimidating, but it's also a chance to create a life that truly makes you happy. Forgiveness is its own journey, and you don't have to forgive your partner right away, or even at all if you're not ready. However, try not to let anger and resentment take over. Clinging to those feelings can hold you back from moving forward and finding peace. Focus on your personal growth and well-being, and let everything else fall into place from there. Most importantly, remember that this experience doesn't define you. It's just one chapter in your story, not the entire narrative. You're much more than the betrayal you endured. Use this time to reconnect with yourself, discover what brings you joy, and build a future that genuinely excites you. Thank you to everyone who offered support, advice, and words of encouragement throughout this journey. Sharing my story has been a powerful part of my healing, and I hope it might help others going through similar struggles. Life has a way of surprising us, and even during the darkest moments, there's always the potential for a brighter tomorrow.